You're watching Euronews now. I'm Rome Sadi, and these are the headlines this hour. Russia says it will increase the bombardment on Kiev if Ukraine targets its territory. The warning follows the sinking of the Moskva warship that Ukraine claimed to have hit. President Zelensky meets with his cabinet to discuss rebuilding Ukraine's economy as the country enters the 50th day of war.
Here in the Cube, we take a closer look at reports of a British man captured by Moscow while fighting in Ukraine.
And a Ukrainian artist flees the war to Italy but finds new purpose by helping Ukrainian children express themselves through art. Good evening. Moscow says it will increase missile strikes on Kiev if Ukrainian attacks on Russian soil continue. The Russian Defense Ministry claims to have targeted 13 military facilities in Ukraine's capital with overnight airstrikes. The Kremlin says the move was in response to a Ukrainian helicopter attack in Russia's Bryansk region on Thursday. The missile strikes also come a day after Ukraine reportedly destroyed Russia's Moskva warship, which Moscow later confirmed had sunk. The battle for Mariupol is reportedly reaching a climax, with Ukrainian forces making a final stand in one of the city's sprawling steelworks. Russian forces have surrounded the city since the start of the war and have slowly been clearing the area of Ukrainian defenders. Kiev is investigating reports that Russian forces have used chemical weapons to smoke out the last remaining fighters. Russia denies the accusations. Meanwhile, President Zelensky held a cabinet meeting to discuss rebuilding the country's economy amid the Russian invasion. Addressing his ministers, Zelensky said he was happy to see them all in a normal setting. Following the meeting, the president said the Ukrainian economy is still operating despite the war. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal also called on Ukrainians in the areas where there are no hostilities to resume work in order to get the country back on its feet. While there's a sense of normalcy is slowly returning to Kiev, Russia now warns it will increase its attacks on the Ukrainian capital. Our correspondent Sasha Vakulina says the timing of this warning is significant.
Life goes back to normal in Kiev more and more every day. As we said, 2/3 of those who left Kiev earlier, they're back. Restaurants are opening slowly, cafes, supermarkets, there's traffic in the outside. Life is going back to normal. And this is when Russia started threatening, it's been a few days now, that they might still attack Kiev, including. And this is why the mayor of Kiev, Klitschko, said many times, please wait a little bit more. We will try to communicate as much as possible, and we will tell you when it's safer to come back. Now it's not safe yet because there is this danger of missile strike. Yesterday, a few hours after the news broke about from Russia when they confirmed that Moskva warship had sunk, around 2 hours later, there were air raid sirens all over Ukraine, every single region. And then, of course, in the aftermath, we know that there were strikes, as Russia claims, in Kiev. And although they've been saying for a couple of days that these are the warnings because allegedly Ukrainian helicopters, 2 helicopters went 10 kilometers into Russia's Bryansk region. This is the region that is northeast from Chernihiv. These are the areas from where Russian troops should have withdrawn by now. And therefore, the timing of it and everything that was before, many think that this is the retaliation of Russia because of the Moskva warship.
Getting aid to Ukrainians during a war that is constantly evolving is a complex affair. Olena Sotnik, one of the founders of Future for Ukraine, told me about her organization's approach. Take a look.
We are trying to help those who flee from the war to another countries. It's women and children, and they are suffering a lot because they just didn't expect that their life would end up in another country where they don't know what to do, they don't know language, they don't have anything, and they don't know what kind of future they will have. So our main goal on this stage, when war is ongoing, is to help them from this very basic point of view, to help them to overcome these difficult times. And of course, there are a lot of people who been just wounded or during the war, they've been harshly attacked, and they're staying in a very difficult medical condition. Some hospitals in Ukraine has also been destroyed. You know that Russians are targeting humanitarian objects such as schools, also hospitals and residential houses. So they're trying to target they're trying to target civilians. And our main goal to help people who've really been harshly or wounded with a difficult means, to bring them to Europe and to provide them with the medical support. And for the future, we believe that soon this war would end it with the defeating of Putin, and Ukraine would celebrate victory. And after that, we would need to rebuild Ukraine. And that would be a very important process, because these 2.5 million people, they have to come back home. And some of them, they don't have homes. So they don't have places to come back. That's why, except money, of course, except funds, we would need a lot of other resources, energy, and I think vision of future Ukraine to bring these people back. And that is the main goal and main idea of our future for Ukraine, to have this vision.
Well, religious orders around the world have condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Russian Orthodox Church has backed President Vladimir Putin's war. The church's leader, Patriarch Kirill, has long been a Putin ally, with the president seen to leverage the church's influence to maintain power. Professor Scott Kenworthy of the Department of Comparative Religion at Miami University says the church is preaching Kremlin lines about the Ukraine war from the pulpit.
Well, it's sometimes hard to judge how influential the church is, or, for example, how popular Patriarch Kirill is. But most, probably 70% of Russians consider themselves to be Orthodox Christians. And so therefore it is important. And so therefore, with Russia currently under Putin trying to control all sources of media and information, it's important that the church stays on message with the rest of the government, not even admitting that it's a full invasion of Ukraine, and supporting the reasons that Russia is giving for the invasion, supporting the reasons that President Putin has given.
And have we then heard any sort of dissenting voices from within the Russian Orthodox Church itself, even as the Patriarch obviously continues to support President Putin's war?
So very early on, there was a letter that circulated that was signed by nearly 300 priests who belong to the Russian Orthodox Church. There was one priest who was known for having been condemning the war in his sermons, who was subsequently then arrested and fined. But since then, we hear very, very few voices coming out of the Russian Orthodox Church inside of Russia, either condemning or condoning the war. There's really this complete silence, virtually, other than Patriarch Kirill himself. And it seems like whether it's the church or the state, that they are keeping a very tight lid on any kind of opposition or voicing of dissenting voices within the Russian Orthodox Church.
The family of a British man say they believe their son has been captured in Ukraine while fighting against Russia in Mariupol, and have appealed for him to be released. Let's find out more from Matthew and our team in the Cube.
Details about the capture of prisoners by either Russia or Ukraine are difficult to verify. But in the UK, there are concerns for a British man who had been reportedly fighting alongside Ukrainian troops and is now held by Moscow. On Thursday night, Russian state television aired footage of a young man wearing handcuffs and a cut on his forehead. The claim is that this is 28-year-old Aidan Aslin, a British man who left for Ukraine in 2018. Now, Aidan's family have told British media that he does indeed have the same distinctive tattoos, and that he had been fighting in Ukraine in Mariupol alongside Kiev's forces. His mother has called on Russia to treat him humanely and release him. On Thursday, there were also separate broadcast footage of the same young man in which he allegedly said that Ukrainian military had been criminals and that they had shown no regard for civilians. It's not clear under what conditions that video was filmed, or indeed if it's the words that the man said. We know that in the past, during this war, Russia has used Ukrainian refugees as propaganda to portray the narrative that Kiev is the aggressor. And Aidan Aslan's family say that that video is just another example. We also know that there is a Twitter account attributed to the 28-year-old which has been posting a very different message of solidarity. On Tuesday, that account said that after 48 days of trying to defend Mariupol, they believed that forces would soon have to surrender. In a separate Facebook post, the Ukrainian military brigade that had been defending the city also said that they soon expected to be captured because they had run out of ammunition. The UK government says that they are aware of a man being held and that they are working with his family amid hopes of a potential prisoner exchange. And what's more, Mariam, Aidan Aslan's local MP, Robert Jenrick, has said that he is also working with the Foreign Office to help try and locate where Aidan Aslan might be and to also potentially help secure his release.
The sanctions imposed on Russia have had a knock-on effect on some of Europe's biggest ports. Cargo containers and luxury goods have all been hit as embargoes rattle the global supply chain. Pedro Secretary reports from the port of Zeebrugge.
Stalled. Destination nowhere. These brand new cars, bound for Russia, now gather dust at Belgium's Zeebrugge port. EU sanctions over the Russia-Ukraine war are biting at the EU's freight hubs. Thousands of luxury cars are lined up around me here at the port of Zeebrugge, with the EU sanctions putting the brakes on exports of vehicles valued at more than 50,000 euros. Mark Adriansens is in charge of the International Car Operators Terminal in the port. Right now, he's got around 8,000 cars blocked here in all. Some of them are because of their price, others can't be exported due to ships being banned from ports.
These are cars coming from Far East and with destination Russia. These of cars are not exported anymore. Customs said they have to be here and they are blocked. We don't know how long they will stay. My guess is that they are looking for alternative markets.
Here in Zeebrugge, like other EU ports, containers loaded with goods for Russia are stacking up as well. Not only hitting Russian businesses and customers, but also hurting trade revenue in Europe. There are worries as well about the impact of additional embargoes on Russian energy.
Other goods are banned as well on containers, so container business, they have the same. I heard that 1,100 containers are blocked as well for the same reasons. But as long as oil and gas is not influenced, I think Zeebrugge is still going well. But oil and gas, and especially LNG, is one of the big traffics coming from Russia to Zeebrugge. If that will be stopped, that would have quite a big impact on the port.
A Russian oil embargo could be part of a sixth EU sanctions package, with discussions already underway. But a ban is far from being consensual among member states. Germany is reluctant and Hungary is a vocal opponent. Pedro Sacadura, Euronews, Brussels.
Well, it's time for a short break, but still to come, we'll be taking a look at the devastating impact of the floods in Durban in more detail. Stay tuned to the programme.